The famous bumper sticker reads, "Don't mess with Texas." But Democratic Congressman from Illinois, Luis Gutierrez, recently told his fellow representatives from the House floor that he's not about to follow that advice. He's blasting Texas officials for, as he puts it, putting the state front and center in the national debate over immigration by leading the charge among the 26 states suing the federal government over President Obama's executive action on immigration. He's never shy about sharing his opinions. He joins us from Capitol Hill, United States Representative Luis Gutierrez, Democrat of Illinois, member of the House Judiciary Committee, and a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. All right, why specifically are you going after Texas, Congressman?
Well, you know, there are 26 states that went to court to sue the president over his use of his executive authority. And executive authority, I might add, well established in the law and in precedents, when he said 11 million people in the United States leave undocumented. I want to make sure that we go after criminals and not families. We go after gangbangers and not children, that we go after people who really can cause us harm. So he said, if you're in the United States for 5 years or more, Larry, you have American citizen children, and you can get through a background check to show us you have a clean bill of health, I'm gonna give you a work permit for 2 years, because clearly you should not be a priority for enforcement at the Department of Homeland Security. And just think about it, they pay for it themselves. We know who they are, we know where they live, we know where they work, and they get on the books at the same time. And yet in Texas, they've got a judge, a federal judge down there, because they handpicked them, because they didn't go to a judge that was going to be, how would I say it, objective. They went and found the most biased, anti-immigrant federal judge that sits on the bench and said, "Judge, what do you think?" And well, they already knew the answer in Texas. No, I think that's a bad idea. And he's holding up the dreams and the aspirations of millions of American citizen children who every day continue to worry and fear that their parents are going to be separated from them.
Shouldn't this go to the Supreme Court?
I think it will go to the Supreme Court eventually. I think we will prevail. The Fifth Circuit, look, Larry, you can shop. They didn't come to a federal court in Chicago, San Francisco, or in New York. They went to a federal court in the Fifth Circuit down in Texas and handpicked the judge. A judge which, by the way, should have recused himself given the kinds of nasty anti-Obama rhetoric he had already uttered in the past. But no, he was happy to take the case, stopping. And you know what? I just want to make sure your viewers understand. You know what the judge wrote? He said, it would be a burden to the state of Texas to have thousands of undocumented men and women get a driver's license. Now fathom that, a driver's license. And Larry, I just want you to make clear, it wasn't like the driver's licenses were going to be for free. No, they would have to study the rules of the road, get a driver's license, get license plates, and be legally driving in the state of Texas. But he thought that that would be a burden. Larry, they're already driving. I would hope that we could help legalize it. Look, what we have to do is put people on the books, get them driving the right way, following the laws like the rest, and paying all the appropriate taxes, because it's a fantasy, which apparently this federal judge still lives in a fantasy world, even though he's on the federal bench, that we're somehow going to deport 11 million people, and it would be a burden to the state of Texas to have them get driver's licenses. Driver's licenses that they get, hey, Larry, they can even charge them extra for the driver's licenses. What kind of burden would that be?
You were arrested protesting presidential inaction on immigration.
Yes, sir.
We had 1 million deportations under President Obama. I don't think you give him a high rating, do you?
Well, now what the president has done is he has changed the immigration debate in the United States. President Obama was deporting people. I was protesting his deportation of people, but he kept saying, I'm doing it because somehow I want to satisfy the Republican Party to show them that I'm going to be tough on those immigrants so they'll come to the table and we can negotiate an immigration deal. Well, guess what? Didn't matter how many people Barack Obama, it's insatiable their demand for the division and the destruction of immigrant families. They just want to see more of it. So what the president did is he said, you know what, Luis, you know what, immigrant community, I'm going to set aside 5 million people. I'm going to make them right with the law. I'm going to make them pay a fine. I'm going to make them go through a background check at their own expense. And if they can show me they're good, outstanding people that are working and they have American citizen children, I'm going to let them raise those children and tell Democrats and Republicans, Larry, just be clear something. The majority of Democrats in this country believe in immigration reform. The majority of independents believe in immigration reform. The majority of Republicans believe in immigration reform. Unfortunately, the majority of those that sit in the House of Representatives do not, and they're stymieing the future of our immigration policy.
There's something puzzling. The Obama administration is responsible for the highest rate of deportation in 20 years, and there's a 26% drop in deportation. That seems contradictory.
Now, here's what's happened. During the last year, you have seen a drop with the new enforcement, I believe, with the new enforcement procedures, number one. And the other thing is, Larry, fewer people are coming. The fewer people are coming. It's a 40-year low in the number of people coming to the United States crossing that border. And I just want to say one thing, since we're talking about that border. Larry, they keep talking, the Republicans, they'll come on your program tomorrow and say, oh, Luis Gutierrez is all wrong. We got to secure the border. You heard Perry, the governor of Texas, with his new eyeglasses and his new look and his new image, because he wants to be president. He says, well, let me try a new approach with a new look. Here's what he tells you. He says, hey, by the way, if we secure the border, then we can talk about immigration. Larry, half of the undocumented, those they call illegal in this country, came through LAX. They came through Kennedy. They came through O'Hare. They came through Miami International. How come they never talk about the immigrants that come from any other place except that border? And that's why some of us are just suspicious of their motives.
Marco Rubio, who's one of the leading candidates, has apparently come around more a little toward your thinking. Do you see a change in him?
Well, you know, first, he was a Tea Party favorite that said that even giving young immigrants that came as children the right to stay, then he was for it. And then he joined, in a very historic measure, in the U.S. Senate, where they cobbled together Democrats and Republicans to give us an immigration, and I applauded him then. Then he started walking away from it. So really, look, it really doesn't matter. They have such a huge, how would I say it, gulf between their policies and the policies of the Republican Party. My question to Mr. Rubio, are you going to stand up to the governor of the state of Texas and the other 26 Republican governor and attorney generals that are stymieing and stopping 4 million American citizen children from being reunited with their mom and dad? Are you going to at least give us some of the immigration policy that you, Mr. Rubio, applaud down there in Miami when people come as refugees from Cuba? Are you, I mean, you just show up in Miami, it's a dry-foot policy. They're there, they're in, 3 years later, they're citizens. Why do you have such a difference in the policy between people coming from Cuba as refugees and people coming from the rest of the world? You need to sort that out.
Speaking of people changing, you're supporting Hillary Clinton, who was against driver's license for citizens,
Very good point.
Right? And now is
Very
for
good
it. So
point.
people change, right?
But you want to know something? It's marvelous to see the work that we've been able to do in the Democratic Party. You're absolutely right. For 4 years, the Democratic Party, what were they doing, Larry, when we were in the majority in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010? They wasted the opportunity. They didn't want to take action because they thought they'd be criticized by the Republicans and they might lose their majority in the House and the Senate. But Larry, you know what I did? I took on my party. I didn't say quietly by the sidelines. I'll take on Democrats and Republicans when they do wrong in defense of the immigrant community. I'm going to continue to do that. But I will tell you what, I think Hillary's doing a pretty good job at this point. Now, she's got Martin O'Malley, who's the governor of, former governor of Maryland. He's doing pretty good. I know we got the socialist, I can't remember his name, from Vermont. Bernie Sanders, I don't know if he likes immigrants because he doesn't seem to talk about immigrants, but sooner or later he'll tell us. I hope he likes immigrants. I haven't heard him say anything. He's been kind of quiet and silent. So I hope that when he sees this program, he sees that there's a lot of people waiting to hear from him.
Let's talk a little about your district and the hometown of Chicago.
Yes, sir.
Gun violence is up from last year. 1,000 people have been shot this year alone. That's nation's two largest cities, New York and LA, have not combined to hit that number. What's wrong in Chicago?
The influx of guns, and guns to the city of Chicago.
Why not in New York and LA?
Because there's a direct route. Part of it is that there's a direct route to the city of Chicago in terms of the gun proliferation. The other thing is Chicago is unique, Larry. We need to do more in the city of Chicago. We need more resources. Look, people want to put more money in jails instead of more hope and more education for young people. We need to do that. It ain't all about guns, but guns is part of the answer to the problem. I think the Chicago Police Department and the mayor, they're trying to do everything they can. It's a tragedy, and it's really a huge blemish on the city of Chicago, but we're working it out. Actually, we've gotten violence down, but unfortunately, it's never enough, and we need to do more.
You can't say you're optimistic, are you?
You know what? I'm optimistic about one thing. I value the people of the city of Chicago. They're great people. And you know what? We're going to get through this tragedy together. But we have to understand that the violence in the city of Chicago is mostly in communities of color. And that's unfortunate. There is a direct correlation between poverty and hopelessness and the inability. Look, the other thing is, I hope that Rahm Emanuel, who I supported for re-election as mayor of the city of Chicago, I talked to him, I said, you know, if you're going to deal with gun violence, if you're going to deal with the issues that afflict our communities of color, the first thing that has to happen is they have to have a better relationship between the police and the youth in those communities. And right now, there's a huge separation between those two communities. So what I'm saying is we've got to get the police and the youth to talk to each other and trust one another if we're going to combat the criminal elements that exist in our communities.
Do you need changes in the head of the police department?
You know what? I think the mayor of the city of Chicago is examining each and every day, and I know he goes to bed with a heavy heart because of the deaths. He suffers. He goes to those funerals. He buries those children. He goes to those funerals. So he has a very deep heart. If he thinks that that's the appropriate action, I know he will take it.
Have you and the president and the mayor, have they done enough, frankly?
Have they done enough? I think the president is doing everything he can. Look, the president's doing everything he can, but let's face it, he is stymied by an anti-Obama. Look, what unites Republicans is being against Obama. Unfortunately, many of the ideas that Obama has are good for the American people.
And now Chicago is doing reparations to people who are victims?
They should. They should. What we're doing is we're looking, here's what we're doing. We're going into the past, and we're looking at police misconduct, and where police misconduct has led to somebody losing their freedom because the police fabricated cases, abused the law, and tortured people. Absolutely, the city of Chicago should stand up for those people.
Another switch gears before you leave us. You want to put a woman on the $20 bill?
I do.
What's wrong with Mr. President Jackson?
I say you know what, put a woman, right? Because, you know, how would I say it? You believe in women's rights?
Sure
That
do.
you should put that we should. Larry, I looked at the dollar bill, the 5, the 10, the 20. Come on, we got to put a woman. We have to be reflective of our society.
Who you got in mind?
And I think, well, let me just say right now, it should be a woman. My legislation says the following: that the Treasury Department should get together. We should look. We have a lot of wonderful women that can win. Now there's a contest online, right? And maybe we'll respect the general public's opinion. But I'm telling you, this is growing across this nation. And pretty soon, you and I are going to take out a $20 bill, and we're going to have a woman on that $20 bill.
I support you completely, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks. Thank you.